Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, sir. Thanks
Good
for
to
having
have
me.
you. Yeah. So we were chatting the other day. You just got back from Dubai.
I did. Yeah, it was over there.
First time there?
First time properly there. I'd gone through there a
How do
couple
you
of
go there not
days.
properly?
That's true. I'd gone through there, stopped over for 48 hours, saw a friend, went on to the next
Okay.
destination. So I think we did visit the Burj Khalifa, and that was it. Back to the airport.
Okay. So you did actually go. It's not like you just transferred a flight to the airport. Like I tell people I've been to Thailand, but I've just been to the airport.
Yeah.
It's in a smoking room.
We did go in. But this time it was 2 weeks. We were there
Yeah.
for 2 weeks.
Oh, so it was a good length.
Yeah. We wanted to just check out, like, what's like. Everyone's talking about UAE. Or, I mean, maybe I'm just getting fed the right stuff on Instagram, but
Yeah.
opportunity over there is. I mean, humans forever have just seeked opportunity.
Yeah.
Australia's got a lot of opportunity. Like Dubai is another level. So it's a bit of a due diligence kind of reconnaissance mission.
One of the things I've heard from other people I know that've been there is, and it might be a rude way to describe it, but it's like missing soul.
Yeah.
It's very clean, crisp. It's like going into a hotel room versus, your kid's bedroom.
It's like going into any new suburb, I think. As in, there's an appreciation for how brand new everything is. Everyone's putting like real high standards. But yeah, like history, you can feel it. Like, as in, you can feel it's missing. Like, was it a 30-year-old like city? But they're building it for scale. I think it was last month they sold 40 billion Aussie dollars worth of property. Like,
Wow.
They're chucking up buildings like crazy. And the standards are high. Like, everything's so convenient, very safe. Like, I thought Australia was safe, but over there is another level. You can leave, as in I was told by a friend, you can leave, $250,000 watch on the side of the pool, go for a swim, forget about it, go for lunch, come back, it's still there.
You see videos of people doing that online. I've heard it is very safe, but there is crime. Just the punishments are so severe.
Yeah, I think there should be. I think consequences will kind of keep the bad guys from doing bad stuff. Like, I think I don't think it's a bad thing to bring a little bit more consequence to doing bad stuff.
What was the culture like? Did you feel uncomfortable at all? Did it feel natural? It's very different to Australia, obviously, because we're kind of a much greener place. It's all desert. Maybe if you lived in the middle of Australia or you go to the country a lot, it'd feel more familiar, but obviously culturally it's very different as well.
Yeah, it's mixed culture. I think that's a similarity with Australia. You've got lots of people from lots of different countries. Generally, there's a lot of people over there with the crypto guys. There's definitely people that are might not share with you what their background in business is. Like, kind of almost seems a bit shady. But there's also, 10,000 golden visas were, I think, given out at the start of the year to content creators. They're now teaching AI in schools. They're less of kind of the slightly woke kind of side of things as well. And I think it's basing
sprinkle a bit of that here, it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I think so. Kind of just pull it back a little, just a touch.
Yeah.
I think they're very forward thinking. Like, they're encouraging entrepreneurs to take the chances and take the risk on different business ideas. Whereas, you look at some other countries, like I'm from the UK, and they're pulling those entrepreneurs back, like, I think, like from a tax perspective or whatever. So yeah, Dubai is like a tailwind, and some other countries like a headwind.
Could you picture yourself living there?
Yeah, I think I could for a period of time. As in, I think that it's how do I describe it? It's kind of like going on a package holiday, and everything's like perfect, but then and there's 7 different Emirates, and one of them, Ras Al Khaimah in the north, is now turned into more of a like hiking and like more green. So
how do they turn it more green?
No, they actually is green. There's mountains, and it actually.
Because do you remember they did the planting, cloud seeding, and it just like flooded everything?
Yeah. There was a few stories. I asked a few people about that, and there's a few mix of stories as to what really happened. But yeah, mostly it's a desert. I think it's 60-70% of the UAE is Abu Dhabi, which is quite different to Dubai. Dubai, I was describing it to a friend as like Dubai is like the young kid who's got the cool watch and probably like a Rolex and all the latest stuff. And
I feel personally attacked, but
yeah. Sorry, I was just. And then Sharjah is like just north of that, and that's kind of the old man. It's kind of like
or Qatar as well, right? Qatar's got a lot more history to it.
I don't know much about Qatar.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, different country.
Because the native population's tiny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I think Dubai or UAE was the biggest producer of pearls, like historically, and then there's someone who created the fake pearl. I forget the exact story, and that killed their economy. And then like oil, and then like I think they've learned from the past to not rely on one specific industry. So now they've obviously gone gang ho on like create a city, and what that means is they need to bring people in, and it's like whatever we need to do to bring more people in, like we'll do it.
Well, I guess they're building the future of whatever future cities are going to look like, right? And because they don't have an aging population like we do here, I think they can skip ahead. Because in Australia, we're still teaching our kids more or less the same as we were, let's say, 15, 20 years ago. The school process is very similar, right? Kids have a laptop now, it's probably the main difference, and they're doing some computer coding and stuff, but we maybe did a little bit of that. You're still doing woodwork and these kinds of things. I don't think they're doing that in schools over there. I think they're looking at it as, are we, in 40 years from now, are we going to even need woodworkers because we're going to be 3D printing this stuff? So, like, 100%. Do we need to teach carpenters, or should we be teaching kids how to program the machine that's going to be the carpenter? And that's where they're going to leapfrog us. Because we're still, and I think we should be, we still need trades, of course. We're still an infrastructure that relies on trades. But that's because we have the infrastructure we have. They've built everything from scratch. Mm-hmm. And other than not getting the toilets right in the Burj Khalifa, they've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an opportunity they have no one else does, because they can leapfrog probably a few generations that we have to teach the old school ways to maintain what we already have here.
Well, like they say, it's not survival of the fittest; it's the survival of the most adaptable. And they're adapting. Like they're, as a country, like they're going, well, where are we going to be in 10, 20? They've got all these visions of 2030. I think it's 2030, no, 2040.
Have you ever heard an Australian politician talk about what Australia's going to look like in 2030, 40, 50? Probably not even 2030. That's only 5 years away. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I haven't either. And these guys talk about 2050 vision and like literally like videos and documentation as to why it needs to be like that. Countries could do more vision.
Which is like a business, right?
Yeah. 100%.
You do that in a business. A country, more or less is a business.
Yeah, bring in the right people who are not afraid to take risks and kind of getting into business, and yeah, be that tailwind for them. I went over there actually as part of that reconnaissance from a property development perspective. I spoke to a few friends that were over there and kind of bit Billy Big Bollocks. I kind of said, I'm going to come over, like look for some land and do some townhouses. And they didn't really reply to me. And I got there and they said, let me know what you think after you've seen what developers are doing over there. And they are giant developers. Like these are not small players.
Are they government backed?
Yes. Yeah. And some of them are publicly like government backed. But the more I dug into it, like most of them have got like the support. There was only one developer that I could find who had some kind of foreign kind of ownership background, but they basically had, some of the, still had support. They still had support. But yeah, I was like, I'm not going over there to do any small development project because I think you get crushed in between these giants. Just a whole different level. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we were hyping each other up about Dubai probably 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I was hyping up my wife as well, and we were like about to book the Dubai trip, the first class tickets. We're going to rent a supercar. We were going to do it like you should, in my opinion. But and then we had too many things get in the way. We never got there. So I'm interested to go over and kind of, like you said, you can't go there with an idea of taking what Australia does and trying to do it over there is not going to work because we're just worlds apart, literally. So it's interesting. What did you find in the property market there?
Everything's like there's lots of new builds. As I said, they're kind of building and selling so much property. A lot of it's off plan. So off plan with all these really great pre or post build. Like they don't do mortgages like the same way we would. They don't do interest only. And so a lot of people are investing from overseas.
And if you don't pay your debt, you go to jail there, right?
I think it's pretty severe if you don't play by the rules. So you got to know what you're getting into. But people are piling in to property. They're the biggest nationalities that are investing in property over there are German and Indian. Which I was surprised.
Interesting. Well, they've got a big Indian population.
Yeah,
especially in their frontline workforces. I know one of the problems they've got is the fact that they don't have the modern slavery standards we've got here, which is interesting because they're such a forward-thinking country, but like you said, they're kind of scrapping a bit of that lefty stuff. Maybe that's part of it. Look, I don't think many people agree with that part of Dubai, and that's what I probably hear most when I speak to people about it, is this idea that, well, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth because you might go there and enjoy all these things, but you know how they're being built. And if you're at the right place at the right time, you'll get a glimpse of the bus loads of dudes coming in that
No,
are not
no
being treated the
aircon,
same as
windows
everyone else.
down. Yeah, there was
so
definitely
shot.
like, yeah, as in to paint both sides. Like you could definitely see there was a darker side, as in like the you know, there's the very rich and there's like clearly the very poor. I did joke with a friend that actually, when I came to Australia, I had to do, you know, if I'd done it, but 2 years worth of work. No, to get the second year visa, I'd have to work on a farm for like 6 months.
Over there?
No,
Oh,
here.
here, yeah.
And then I'm like,
Wouldn't
yeah,
work on a farm there.
yeah, no. But yeah, you come to Australia and do your first year visa as someone from the UK. And to get the second year, you've got to go off and, you know, work as is it slavery? I don't know. You get paid, but you work on a farm,
Yeah,
sweating
they say
out.
farm work, but there's ways around it. Yeah, just country pub can tick that box as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do that farm work?
No. I end up managed to get sponsored before that.
Okay. What age did you come here?
It's 10 years ago. So 26
And you
years old.
came on your own?
No, I came with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, wife now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just decided that. Well, actually, we decided that the UK wasn't the best place. We didn't have any money left in our pockets at the end of each month, and so it was like, you know, living in London.
And you thought Australia was the right place to come to solve that problem?
Yeah, like actually,
Maybe not Sydney.
no, Sydney definitely not. But I'd seen friends come over here for like 1 year, and then they just hadn't gone back. And you know, one good friend, Jack, he'd come back every now and then. He's like this mythical creature that would turn up in the same village that you all grow up in. And you see him and be like, how's Australia? And he just never have anything bad to say about it. He'd be, I'm back for this or whatever. I just said to my wife, I was like, we need to just like try something different. I'd already been to India for like 6 months to learn how to code software. And like when I come back from that, I was like, okay, that was good fun. Like, that was good to get more experience and exposure. And I went did a ski season and came back from that. It's kind of building the confidence to kind of get out of town. And yeah, eventually just said, let's go to Australia for a year. And then it turned into traveling a little bit on the way there, kind of the fairly standard thing that most people do. So we did kind of all through Southeast Asia. The idea was to stop in Australia 1 year and then come back. And yeah, kind of the classic thing, 10 years later, still here.
Yeah.
But my parents have like gone from saying, when are you coming home? Just from a nice, you know, just kind of caring, like, oh, how is it? Come home. When are you coming home? And then I only took them like a year before they'd come and visit and then be like, don't come home. Like it's pretty good here.
Yeah, good.
And now they joke about like, well, can we come out and like stay long term with you over there? So yeah, that's kind of.
I think both places have their problems, some similar, some not. But you've been in Australia a long time now. And so I think that helps you kind of, you know, get out of your comfort zone. You know, I've never left the country to live. I grew up in Canberra, then Melbourne, now Sydney. So I've done everywhere but the Gold Coast. Anywhere that matters anyway.
God, difference from Canberra, like it's ghost town, isn't it?
Oh,
What was
yeah.
it like growing up down there?
It's like a big country town. Yeah, it's just like a big country town. Not everyone knows everyone, but everyone knows 1 degree of separation, maybe 2, definitely not 3. Like you don't
Is
have
that
to
a
dig
nice
too
thing
deep.
though, like sense of community. Or
Sometimes
like,
it's really nice. Sometimes it's really frustrating.
yeah,
Yeah, it's almost like a country town, lack of privacy. Everyone knows your business. And you know, if you want to get out of your comfort zone, you know, if you just start a business or something, for me anyway, I felt like it was pretty restricted.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the government there, of course, everyone in Canberra is in the government or a service that supports people or just people in the government. You know, lots of cafes, restaurants, obviously some trades and things like that. There's a lot of building in Canberra. But yeah, probably similar to you, I saw that there was just more opportunity somewhere else.
I actually think that getting just out of where you grew up is actually a good thing across the board. I actually go back, if I go back, if I was to go back and tell myself one thing, it would have been just to get out of town. Even if you end up going back after 2-3 years, at least you've gone and seen what else is out there. Like for me, it was like cleared the slate in terms of all the different people that I'd hang out with and the work or whatever. I'm still friends with heaps of people at home still, but it kind of gave me a chance to kind of like step back and go, okay, what do I want to do next? And like,
I love going back home now as well.
Yeah.
The first few years, I was like, oh, why would I want to go back there? But you have that nostalgia. You forget things and you go there and they prompt memories, you know, and you have a laugh with your mates. And so I think you know, you create a new life for yourself somewhere different, like you've done in Australia.
Yeah.
And yeah, some people go back, some people don't. I know people that left Canberra and have gone back as well because, you know, when you grow up in Canberra, there's no traffic, there's no low stress, you know, everything's pretty smooth sailing. And you're not too far from nature.
Nah.
So people go back to that.
It's funny, like my wife probably, she'd be the more stable one, the one that's kind of, you know, maybe doesn't need to change, kind of like change everything too quick. And I'm the one that's like, let's change everything.
Yeah.
And then I'm the one that after we've made the change, like shits it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what have we done? Like, I remember we first got here, we literally did have like no money. I had this small business that I started in the UK, which was, you remember those scooters, the kind of, you stand on them and you lean forward, and they were called hoverboards.
Oh, the hoverboard Segway type.
Yeah. So I started bringing those in from China, and slowly the orders got bigger.
Were yours catching on fire too, or?
No, but that's the problem. Like, my ones weren't getting on fire, which had Samsung and LG batteries. But what happens in China, which I learned, is that they take what's selling well, they chop out some of the more expensive parts, and just there's this cycle all the way down to the point.
So they look the same at face value, but you don't realize the good selling product probably sold on reliability, and the internals are gone now.
Exactly. Yeah. But then come Christmas Day and someone's house is on fire and the Christmas trees are light, they just look at, but there's a problem with those scooters. And so they look back at everybody else's, like, although like genuinely had no issues with ours, it didn't matter, because once the news started to say these things are, a problem, business
that's
slowed
happening
down.
now. Actually, I don't know if you've seen the signs, but they're banning all e-bikes and scooters and skateboards and stuff on public transport now because a bike caught on fire.
Well, I actually think that like the issue is more seeing like a 15-year-old kid doing 60 kilometers an hour down a pavement.
Hey, have you seen my skateboard?
Yeah, I have, and I would like one.
One ride on it and you'll be converted. So I lost my license, and then I did the wrong thing and I got caught driving, and I said it's time to own up to this. Stop driving. And you know me, big car guy. So, I'm leaving the house every day, staring at my cars, and it's breaking my heart. But sometimes you got to own up to your mistakes. And so I decided it's time to do that. But I still have to get to work.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, what are you meant to do to make that easier? I can't ride a push bike because then I've got to put it somewhere. Can't walk. It's too far. I take Ubers when I can, but the skateboard
I reckon there should still be some kind of license, as in like should be easy to get, but an absolute meat missile of a 15-year-old kid or like 60 kilos or whatever, like flying down a road with like not the same kind of savviness that you would, like, maybe not, I don't know. Like,
so they're fully illegal and I'm aware of that. I wear a helmet, try and like, every time I see a cop, it's funny because I'm like hiding the accelerator because there's a little remote, right? And I'm like,
start getting off pretending to push.
Or I go so slow that they could be like, is he just rolling? Like, and so when I come to traffic lights on purpose, I kick off like you would on a normal skateboard, but then I just keep going and never kick again. So they watch me long enough, they'll figure it out.
I did exactly the same with one of those Segway scooters like 6 years ago, like, and it looked like a push along one, just push along like past anyone you thought might be kind of trying to catch you out, but I also lost my license a while ago as well. So we've all been there.
It's been very fun. The skateboard's bloody fun.
Makes you change a few things up.
I thought it was a good solution. I stay on the footpaths. I try and do the right thing, but it's been pretty fun. I think it's good. So you had
broken any speed records yet?
No. So I did almost break my ankle. Week 1 of having the skateboard, I ended up in hospital.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Ankle, of course. Yeah. And it's pretty funny when you go to the hospital as a 31-year-old saying I did my ankle on a skateboard and they're looking at you going, you don't look like a skateboarder. And I'm like,
find out who the cool kids are. Like, oh, that's quality. Like, others being like, grow up, man.
Hey, the nurse thought it was hilarious, but
that's what
so you got to do what you can do, So I've got this skateboard, but I'm enjoying it for now. And I get my license back kind of soon. And I'm already like missing the fact that when I get it back, then I'm going to have to drive places. But I'm really enjoying the skateboard. So maybe I'll just continue on.
Yeah.
Till I get caught in it anyway. So you had the electric skateboard business or
the electric skateboard
thing?
Business, that was kind of, it ramped up.
Did you do that in Australia as well, or you stopped?
No. I did it in the UK. It was like my first attempt at like taking, the buying and selling bits and...
Was that straight drop shipping, or you were actually buying them in stock?
No, I was buying them in stock. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that.
What year was this?
2014.
Way before ecom boom then.
Yeah. And it was literally just, it was finding the Alibaba Express or Alibaba, finding someone who sold them, buying like 5, to the point that I was sending, I think it was £20,000 like worth of like stock that I was bringing in, which kind of to reference the show with regards to risk. Like I was like, that is literally all the money I had at the time.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, okay, I remember sending it and being like, fingers crossed that these guys aren't going to screw me over because I've got nothing to pull. I've literally got a WhatsApp channel with a lady who's like,
how did you know to trust them?
I
just hoped.
Honestly, I said to my wife, I said to G, like, I showed her the messages, but it was like I was flirting. Like I was trying to build such a strong relationship. She was basically like my girlfriend in China. Like she'd send pictures of herself, like in the factory, like selfies with the stuff happening in the background. I'd send one back so that it encouraged her to keep sending pictures. Nothing dodgy, but it was literally just like I want to just keep seeing proof that like it was
It's
what
real.
she said. Yeah, and it did kept coming through. But yeah, like kind of sold those. Then came to
So
Australia.
that was like your first taste.
Yeah, no, I did like small stuff before, but
So you always had it in you.
yeah, like I don't know, I get myself into trouble by saying like all the pirate DVD type thing, you know.
Yeah.
I was like copying DVDs.
LimeWire, we've all been there.
Yeah. I thought,
You know, LimeWire's restarted.
has it?
Yeah, new business model.
How they made that legal?
They were around the city asking people with a microphone like everyone does, have you heard of LimeWire? And everyone's like, no. And I'm like, what did you guys do for music if you haven't had LimeWire?
Yeah, I would have thought loads. I
Yeah.
guess above a certain point, people would be like, of course I had.
I think it's like a file transfer app now. Obviously, they're not ripping music.
Yeah,
That's gone.
Yeah,
But that's what
pirate
you started doing. Yeah, you were the pirate.
Yeah, I kind of realized that if I bring like one DVD down from like that website and then copy it and then sell it at school, like it's a big convenience play for people. They didn't know how to do all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Then I remember having this big duplicator that was like a 1 to 9, so I'd get this like master copy and then I'd stick it in and 9 copies would come out the bottom.
Yeah.
Remember having a weekend job at this helicopter place. I was like working there, refueling helicopters before the age that I could even buy fuel, let alone sell the fuel. And like in between refueling, I was in there kind of printing out the covers for the DVDs. So I was always kind of like
Using
trying to
their printer.
Yeah.
So you're not just ripping the product, you're ripping their printing ink and the paper.
Yeah.
The shop,
I
mate,
thought they wouldn't mind. Like, there's a lots of costs that you need to try and cut down. So,
savvy.
Did that. Actually did like really well. I was driving around on my little moped, £7 a week in petrol. Yeah. And then I got this job as a roofer. I was like working in roofing, and I actually did that because I thought that's the kind of clientele that I wanted to be selling these DVDs to as well. So I'd be out there, like put a few tiles on, then go around the site, and there'd be 50 tradies and be like, you want any DVDs? So they used to buy them, and then some of their like requests started to turn weird, like as you can imagine. And then I was like, okay, I need to be careful with what kind of stuff I'm really downloading.
Could be
for
more
these guys.
crimes involved.
Yeah. So did that, and then when I came to Australia, I kind of had this little bit of a buy and sell kind of like skill set, I guess, if I could even call it that, but as in like the courage,
which is the grassroots stuff, right? Every business is buying or selling or both,
taking the difference.
Yeah.
Just I didn't recognize what marketing and everything else, like finance. Finance was just kind of cash swap, like.
Yeah. So what did you do when you first came here?
Oh, when I first got to Australia, I had like maybe 5,000 like Aussie, and that was like the last of the cash that came from that business. I actually left. I had a few friends and my brother. As I was leaving, they were like, "Oh, can I run the business while you're not here?" And I was like, "Sure." Here's the mobile phone that people call when they want one of these scooters that they found an advert on Gumtree or Marketplace or whatever. And actually, maybe Marketplace wasn't around. Definitely Gumtree. And I was like, just when you get the phone call, like just get the scooter to them as fast as you can and like take the cash and done. And then once you've got enough cash, just like let me know and we'll order some more. But with the Christmas fires, they didn't do too well once they doubled up as heaters within the house.
Which is funny, right? Because if you had spent more time in business, you'd actually realize things like those fires are the best marketing tool you can have happen in your business. Because unless you're the one with the failing product, which you weren't, you take those things and you run with them because now you're the product that doesn't catch fire.
Yeah. That's, if you can if you've got the spend to be able to get out there and be like, that's not me, I'm these guys instead.
Yeah.
Then got to Australia and I started buying like anything I could off of Gumtree and Facebook that I thought was good. I bought a fold-up bicycle, an iPad. I got a free motorbike. This guy had it on Gumtree. Yeah. And all I had to do was to go and pick it up. So it was left in a garden.
When you said all I had to do, I thought that was going somewhere else. All I had to do is he had this weird request.
Just like stick a couple of needles in to turn the lock. But yeah, I got that, and then I sold that to this guy. Like, literally got it for free. And then
you were getting them to use, or just flipping everything you could?
I was flipping everything.
Yeah, okay.
And then there was some stuff I would keep, like the fold-up bicycle. I then used to then cycle. Because I just started working as a labourer in Australia and on the light railway.
Flipping's almost a hobby, right? Even Gary Vee still does that. It's the last thing he should be doing. But if there's an enjoyment, but he still goes to garage sales and buys little toy cars by the buckets and flips them for $5 each. And he'll sit there and Google them. Google, you can scan a car, right? he'll do that on eBay and go, oh, I can get this whole bucket for $50, but there's 10 cars in here that are 5 each. It pays for the rest, and he'll put them all up, and it's like,
I
what
didn't
a
know who's doing that. What
yeah.
is it? Just a pure like to feed like
Well, that's how he
itch?
started, I think, like what you were doing.
Right.
And then obviously he grew into who he is now, but that was the grassroots stuff he enjoyed doing. He comes back to it. And so he turns up to garage sales now, and I guess if they know who he is, they're not going to let him bargain with him, but he still tries. He does heaps of videos about it.
I can relate to that actually. As in, do you know the Only Fools and Horses? There's a scene after they've made all their money, and
No, I
Del
don't know.
Boy's kind of like, it's a comedy show in the UK, but like the Del Boy's kind of like, the market dealer, and then they find this watch, and the watch makes them a lot of money, and they suddenly don't need to do any of this stuff anymore, and they sell the flat, and he goes back to the flat, and there's this like famous scene where he kind of picks up the suitcase that he used to run from the police from whenever they were like chasing him. And he kind of has a quick run across the living room, just kind of like to like remember what it was like to be like back at the grassroots.
I think everyone does that in some respect. When you get any kind of traction in your business, that means you're in that back room in the trenches, looking at data, you're making bigger decisions, and you lose some of the fun. Most people start a business because there was something grassroots about it they enjoyed doing. But if you remain a small business, you can usually stay around that task, whatever it might be. If you're a builder, you probably started out as a carpenter. But at some point in your business scaling, you can't be the one hammering the nails anymore. And that's where those passion projects come back, I think. Gary Vee's the last guy that needs $50 worth of toy cars. But if it gives him that mental break, that switch off, back to something he enjoys, and there's still some kind of benefit, I think we all probably need that, right?
Well, Richard Branson talks about entrepreneurship really just being play. And so, and he also talks about, and I believe this as well, is that as a business gets bigger and bigger, the entrepreneurship actually gets stripped from that business. Yeah. So there's this like fight to try and keep the founder entrepreneur type energy in the business, which is almost impossible once it gets past a certain point.
Because commercially, most things don't make sense. And it's like the Titanic versus Speedboat, right? You just can't make quick decisions because you've got to look at the chain reaction that could come from that. You've got to weigh all that up. You've got to evaluate the risk in it. And then most things get squashed because if you can't demonstrate a real strong benefit that could outweigh all the potential risks, that you can't fly close to the sun, as a business that big.
Yeah, you can't be agile. You can't, which is important, I think, especially nowadays. Like, you've got to be able to take the risks and go like, that one didn't work, that one didn't work.
Especially in a government that, we're very regulated in Australia. So your calculation's always based on what the outcome's value is because the penalties, are huge with regulation. Most businesses have a license or something attached to them now that you've got all these rules to maintain, which there should be, because we want to do things safely, of course. But yeah, it does squash the entrepreneurship.
I think entrepreneurship, you have to just kind of work backwards from what do the governments want and allow within certain jurisdictions. That's actually one of the reasons why it was good to go to Dubai and see, well, how do they do things differently there? I know how they do it in the UK. I know how they do it in Australia. Like, what are they doing differently? Yeah. So you work backwards from whether it's the government grants, incentives, whatever. You kind of start to see, okay, well, there's the opportunity. Like, there's the change that's happened, which has created that opportunity. Otherwise they end up running into a brick wall like constantly. Like, yeah,
it's funny. I was just thinking when you said that, if you went into ChatGPT and plugged in all the things Dubai's doing right now with bringing in influencers, promoting entrepreneurship, investment, to get a golden visa, you basically just have to buy an asset there.
Yep, 2 million,
or start
2 million dirhams. Yeah,
and you get a visa.
Yep.
If you took those actions that they're actually doing and put them in ChatGPT and said, "What's the goal of this business?" it would say it's clearly got an outcome it's focused on. It's a financial outcome or a growth outcome. And then it made me think, if you took what Australia is doing, massive taxes, we're one of the most overtaxed people in the country. Building a house is you're paying more taxes than anywhere in the world. If you took all that and plugged it in, what would that look like? What would it assume the goal is? Because to me, that goal would look pretty sad.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's Patrick Bet-David, I think I probably butchered the quality of what he actually says, but talks about the history of like how tax has been done in countries. Do they tax external, like by tariffs and whatever, or do they tax internal with income tax? And you just look at what Dubai's doing, what UAE is doing, and they're focusing on like, taxing externally, exports, whatever. Which it just allows like fostering of like much more.
They always add tax, but they never take it back. Yeah.
I also think that the 9% tax that they brought in is actually just to kind of help with the narrative of bringing in more big businesses, because otherwise big businesses don't really want to get tied up with the whole, oh, you're going over there just to do A, B, and C.
Yeah, well, you don't want the businesses to come there just for you to be a shelf company. You want them to trade in your country. So if it's too tax beneficial, they're just going to send their profits there and set up a marketing agency and say, we rent the IP from them and leave all the profits there.
Yeah, definitely.
You want them to create genuine business because you've got to grow your economy. I heard the funniest conversation the other day. I was sitting in Parramatta Westfield in the food court, right? And if you've ever sat there, there's some colourful characters.
Do you go there often?
It's the closest JB Hi-Fi, right? So if we need something, we duck down there. And so I'm grabbing some lunch on the way, and I take a seat at one of those long tables where there's just like a bunch of people sitting at them. And there's these two couples next to me having a conversation, and they're a wild group, you know. They were colourful.
Okay.
And you can't help but listen. And he was coming out with some outrageous stuff. I won't get into it because it was around the protest on the bridge the other day when they shut down the Harbour Bridge. Right. I'll leave that to the side. But what he did come up with that I thought was pretty interesting.
Political otherwise.
Yeah, well, you know, he was crapping on about how we don't need it here. It's our country. Like, it's too big of a debate to sit there and have, you know, it was Parramatta Westfield. So I guess that's where these people are going to have a conversation. But one of the points he made that was pretty interesting was he was basically trying to explain that if you go back in time when governments were much smaller, the overarching federal government didn't do too much. It was like your local, you know, center of town. Everyone knew the sheriff or the cop, you know, in a small town. And it's still like that when you go to a smaller place now. And then you have your local councillor or whatever, right? And if we wind back far enough, whatever that looks like, there was a time where if somebody did something wrong, committed a crime, or there was an assault or whatever, or a murder, what would happen? Everyone would convene in town square, and everyone would have their say, nah, hang him, get rid of him, you know, whatever. And then they'd probably string him up by his boots and hang him.
Right. Yeah.
But then we couldn't do that anymore, unfortunately.
Do these guys think that we should?
There are some crimes that probably we should just do that.
Yeah.
That, you know, if we're meeting, you know, on the steps in the town, it probably won't work too well in the city.
So these guys weren't sat there, you know, encouraging death penalty.
No, but this was his debate. And this was very interesting, right? So he's building up to this idea of his. And then he comes out with it. And while he was building up, I was thinking, what a lunatic, right? But then he dropped the penny and I was like, wow, he's onto something. So we couldn't do that anymore. Yeah, well, I think we all agree on that. So we started giving more responsibility to the government. That's how it starts, right? There was a time where the government was just whoever was more senior in the town. And then over time, it progressed into what we have now as a federal government. And there's lots of reasons for that. But part of it along the journey just lost touch with the people. And of course, we have an election and that votes somebody in. But we all know that with so many people in the population, even if it's a 50-50 split, that still means 50% of the people aren't happy with the result. And if you split it 50-50, in some places, that's going to be a majority aren't happy with whoever wins the election, right? So this guy's whole point of view was, we can't go back to town square. But what we can do is use technology to put some kind of immediate voting system in place. So, for example, if we're going to shut down the Harbour Bridge for a protest, and which was a very politically divided topic, right? And my perspective was probably the same as the police. It's pretty risky. But then their perspective is, well, you're doing it for the run, like the next week. I get that too. So I can see both sides. And I'm fully, I think we all have the right to protest, as long as it doesn't impede safety in other people. And the raw facts of that are, and we have to look at what actually happened, there was no issues whatsoever. It was extremely peaceful protest. So they proved everyone wrong that was trying to kind of drag him down and say, nah, it's going to turn into riots, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Whether you agree with them politically or not, it was actually a very peaceful protest. So this guy's whole point was, if they want to shut down the bridge for a protest, why can't we put a survey out to everybody that lives in a radius that's going to be impacted by this shutdown? Yes or no?
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Why didn't they?
Well, they have the capability to. Let me tell you,
they have the capability to put. They have the capability to put voting on the blockchain.
Yeah,
so that you can actually see your vote with whatever code after the result. But like, you've ever been to a local election where you go in there and you give your name, and the little old lady kind of like looks through the book and finds your name and scores you off. And I said to them, like, do you need some ID? They're like, nope.
Yeah,
no. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean. I still kind of, carried on with the process, but I was like, we have technology. Like, as in, that's almost like a laughing stock of like how much technology we do have.
Yeah.
Whether it's cameras up and security cameras to do facial recognition, but then there's little old lady's not even asking me for my ID to. I said to her, I said, my name's Tim Cook, and she was like, oh, is it? And I was like, you're gonna ask me for my ID, like,
Yeah.
But yeah,
No idea. Yeah, it's funny because
it's a good idea.
there's heaps of technology innovation in the government, especially in the ATO, right? And people say they're trying to get rid of cash. Their goal is not to get rid of cash. Their goal is to tax every dollar possible. And the only real reliable way to do that is to filter out cash methods, right? But if you operate in any capacity around the ATO, if you're an accountant or a lawyer or a business owner or a CEO, anybody that operates around tax compliance and things like that, you'll see that it's changing so quickly. Even the pay-as-you-go tax rules now, out of control. Recently, they've made it now that you can't even revert a pay run. You've got to just do a whole separate pay run instead of being able to take it back to a draft, basically, and change a line item, because then that submits a double filing. So they're changing all these things, and of course, it's all to squeeze the most juice out of it.
But why? Like, why? Tax so heavily, like, and constantly keep. And I think we both shared the same post yesterday by a comedian that talks about each of the different taxes.
Yes.
So you get halfway through it, and you're like, yeah, wait, there's a lot of different taxes: luxury car tax, TGT, whatever. But like, I'm just like, where are we going with that? Like,
well, all the innovation in technology is about finding more ways to tax people, and that might not be adding a new tax, but it might be finding a way to apply that tax. But why can't that same innovation be used for the benefit of the people, like the voting system?
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't really feel that good about voting, knowing that I'm not sure whether my vote even got counted. Like, so I completely agree. Why don't you bring in more technology to that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm assuming because their current technology is to put the spotlight on business owners and decision makers who are ticking the compliance boxes. They don't want to turn that spotlight on them, because could you imagine? I mean, we see it in America now with what Elon Musk is doing and all these things they're finding. And that would happen in any organization. That's not just an our government problem or their government problem. If you took any massive business and did a professional audit like that, you would find so many things going wrong, because at scale, it's really hard to micromanage all those little things. And if you're a service-based business to big customers, you see that all the time. They accidentally double pay invoices and all this stuff like goes wrong because there's just so much data going in and out that there's going to be mistakes. And so the same thing's happening in our government. And I think they see that as like we would hang them up by their boots for it. But I think most people would understand probably that, well, it just needed to happen. There were some errors, as long as we fix them, because in the government's perspective, if you find a business like that, we see it all the time with people being fined millions or billions of dollars for miscompliance, right? Usually if it affects people because it's a more sensitive topic. But of course, if there's a mismanagement of tax, and I think they just don't want that spotlight put on them. Look what's happening with super.
I think you build trust through transparency, like, to a certain degree. And I think, like, to reference the Dubai stuff again, like, the people over there, like, especially the Emiratis, like, they really believe the government is doing great stuff for them.
Did you get into it? Did you, like, throw a robe on and...
Nah, I should have done that.
You should have, yeah.
I did do the hiring.
You would have been the whitest guy in the robe ever.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether there was actually a couple of guys that I saw who were wearing the full robes.
I've seen it on Instagram and stuff.
I'm not sure if this is just he's moved to Dubai and really getting into it, or whether, like, Emiratis would get a bit annoyed by that.
Oh, a friend of mine runs a business over there, and he kind of said if there's a type of event you're going to where they would, I don't know what the right word to use is, not dress up, but if they would wear that official kind of gown or whatever, then he does as well out of a sign of respect, and they love it apparently.
Okay.
Whereas here, it'd be seen as like racist. If I walk down the street dressed as, in the Indian gowns or whatever with all the beads hanging off them, people would think I'm a lunatic.
Yeah. That's true. But
maybe it's just how we view it.
Yeah. I remember going to a few weddings and Jewish weddings, and kind of one of them they came around with the kippah, and it was like something that everyone could take away, and like I wasn't sure if I should put it on or not. I was like, they gave it to me. I was like, oh, just so you know, I'm
you put it on and someone just slaps it off your head.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if I was going to offend anyone, so I just double checked with someone quietly. And no, it's fine. You can wear it. Like, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
I saw a video on that where a guy was going around a university asking students, if I dress like this, would you think it's racist? And they all say yes. And then he goes to people from those cultures and says, if I dress like this, what would you think? And they go, that's awesome. He went to like a Mexican and he had a sombrero on and a gown thing, and they were like, that's mad.
It's like embracing the culture.
Yeah, but and it was all white people were like, nah, that's racist. You can't do that,
It's like different sets of rules depending on who you are.
It's just an open-mindedness. Yeah.
But I think the trust through transparency is important. Like, as in, however every country does it, they need to just work out how to build that trust. Because I think that's a bit that's been lost. It's the reason why government would worry about the spotlight, getting turned on them and then everyone kind of hanging them by their boots, as you say, is because there's not been that trust for I don't think people have as much trust as they should.
I think we're the first generation that are open-minded to changing your perception on government as well, because if we go back, maybe not your parents because they weren't here, but if you go back to my grandparents, they were hardcore, we vote Labor.
Right.
And you would never change their mind, ever. And they were that way because that's what their parents taught them. And they didn't have the availability of information we have now to really change their own mind. So they were just taught from day one. We've all got things our parents taught us that were just stuck with us. And I think now we have the opportunity of information in abundance that we can make our own minds up. And I think that's where we haven't found our feet. It's too much information, which means there's too many ideas. We were like a two-party system. We still are a two-party system, but we were that way because you can't educate people on all the other variants that could happen. Whereas now, a random party can set up, do a massive billboard campaign or text you 1,000 times during an election and try and have their say. But that didn't happen before. So I think we're probably the first generation where you could actually have that change.
Yeah, as in there's too much. Sometimes there's too much data, too much content.
Way too much.
But Cohen Ray, there's a video he did a while ago, and it talks about the leg of lamb. Have you ever seen that?
No.
He turns around. The story is a guy turns around to his wife and says, why do you always cut the end off the leg of lamb, like when it's going into the oven, or maybe it's pork, whatever. And she's like, it's 'cause that's what my mum always did. And so she said, well, call your mum and find out why do you always cut this end off the lamb. And so she calls and she's like, why do you cut the end off of it? She's like, oh, that's because my mum used to do that. She's like, could you call her and find out why she does it? And anyway, the point being is that the ovens have actually grown in that time. And so they used the first generation used to cut the end off because the ovens were so small.
Yeah.
But now we have bigger ovens. But the point being that the pattern had continued on,
keeps going,
although the environment had changed. And so I really like that story because I think that you're talking about the generation now is questioning more. Why do we cut the end off that leg of lamb? And recognizing the oven is.
And there's just more platforms to ask those questions as well. Where what would you do 15 years ago? You had to get on the radio or the TV, which was not possible.
Yeah, one of my friends, he keeps reminding me of this. We were out cycling one weekend, and he said, I think I'd like to start a business, but I'm just not sure where to start. And I was just like, mate, I think in today's world with AI and access to information and everything, it's insulting that you haven't started a business yet. And he's a really good friend. I didn't mean to piss him off, but it obviously did because he still jokes with me now because he's actually started a few things which are awesome. And he's like, this guy once told me that it's insulting to not start a business nowadays. With the access to, you can literally reach out to maybe the best person in the world at a specific topic. Maybe there's a few gatekeepers, but you can get close to one of the best people in the world at whatever it is you want.
Yeah.
If you just I listened to this podcast the other day, and it said intelligence is basically it's gone. As in there's no value on intelligence because you can get it all now from AI, whatever. But the value really is on agency or generative. So actually, just being the person who just keeps on doing the thing. It's not you don't have to be the smartest person.
Yeah. Well, you didn't have to before either, but you had to read 1,000 books.
That's
2,000 books.
That's true.
You would never meet somebody who's read 3,000 business books who's not successful.
No, is it earners are learners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick Bet-David's a good one. He's 2,000 books in now. His kids earn money for chores through reading pages.
Library works.
Yeah. And that's because there really is no new problems. They're just different versions of them, and they've all been solved, and they're all in books.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the time it takes to get to them. And so audio books have helped. But the reality is it's still a long journey to get through that much information or plug it all into a system that you can just ask the question that gives you an answer.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm not a very good reader. I prefer audio. I prefer to be doing something at the same time. And then people say it's a hack to actually read the book while doing the audio. And I just downloaded Blinkist, this the app that summarizes. So now if I find a book and you recommend it, I'm not sure if it's the right book for me. I'll just summarize it on YouTube for 20 minutes and be like, I listen to that in the, not that it's 20-minute shower, but I'll try to listen to that in the shower and then be like, is that worth me now listening to more of that? And eventually I'll read the book. I
was reading a really good book the other day and I sent it to a friend of mine. I said, mate, this book's on topic for what you're doing at the moment. You should read it. And he replied back, audio book. And he replied back, how long's the audio book? And I said 8 hours. He just never replied.
Too long.
No chance.
But you drive somewhere. Sometimes you've got 2-3 hours to burn.
He was on a night shift. And that's why I was like, dude, just, but he's like, nah.
And some of those gold nuggets are literally life-changing. They sit in your mind. I know you kind of did a lot of that stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
I listened to this podcast recently, and it recommended a book which I listened to. It's only an hour and a half long, and it was called "Don't Tell Me You Can't." Don't tell me I can't. It's written by a 15-year-old kid who started a business when he was 7.
Wow.
And like it's only an hour and a half long. Unfortunately, he's like passed. He had this accident at age 15, which kind of like adds even more like to listening to the story. But yeah, this kid like was homeschooled, as in like his parents weren't afraid to go against the grain. But he just had so much agency. Like he just kept on trying this, trying that. His first business was breeding rabbits. And then he went and bought a property. He was actually using like optioning on property, and he just kept on asking people how to do stuff. And obviously because of his age, there was a lot of people that were like, "Oh, I'll help this kid out." Like, tradie comes around to fix up his house. And
I think people underestimate people's willingness to help. I think when I speak to people that are either really early in business or haven't started the idea yet, they think it's up to them to learn everything, and they don't realize that if they just met milestone people that know the answers, how willing they would be to help.
Definitely.
And I think when you're in a business or you're an entrepreneur that has gone down that road already, you learn very quickly that when a problem comes up, the first step should be ring 2 or 3 people you know that may have solved it before. Then you add your own twist to it, of course. But the answer isn't sit down on your own and figure it out.
Which is what they teach you in school.
Do
a test by yourself.
find a book, reference it.
Failure's bad.
Yeah.
Which failure's learning.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins talks about modeling. Like find someone you can model who's that few steps ahead, and it just being like a hack to get there. Also, like another thing he talks about, which is pattern recognition, pattern utilization, and pattern creation. And that's really all it comes down to. So like you pattern recognize someone doing what they're doing. If I want to start a business that's similar to yours, I'd probably come to you and go, oh, not only do I want to try and be a competitor, but like hey, I'm going to do this in a different country. Like, what can you share with me? You like be able to like shortcut.
That's actually how I started my first business. So I was working in a security company, and they had a secret sauce that made them very unique. And I was moving states, so we weren't a competitor. And the business owner actually said to me, "I'm all for it, mate. I might even invest with you. Tell me your ideas. But step one, just fly to my office. I'll sit down with you for a whole day, and I'll just dump everything on you. You tell me what you want to know, what you don't know, and we'll just go through everything." And people would think the opposite. They would think, you're telling this guy you're starting a copy of his business. Like I was just copying what he had done. I was an ops manager for him. And I was just like, I'm just going to copy and paste that in Sydney, and then we'll figure out once the ball's
Where was his business?
Melbourne.
Okay.
And he just gave me everything. There was no gatekeeping. And
how old was he, roughly?
55, rolling in cash.
Yes, yeah. So I think there's a stage where someone gets to and they're just like, if there's a young guy who wants to give it a crack, like 100% I'll help. Like, I remember I was working in Big Four consulting years ago. I was like 17. And there's this Spanish dude that I met who was a software developer, and it still sticks with me him saying this. He goes, the best business model you can take? And I was like, I wasn't even really thinking about business that much. He was like, go to another country, travel, find something you really love, and that's like with a company that's already doing pretty well. Go and copy that, with or without them. And once you scale to a certain point, go back to them and say, do you want to buy us?
Yeah.
And it's literally just like, that rings in my head kind of quite often. Like how easy to do that. It's good for that business, especially if you're not playing in the same country. And it's great for them if you've literally copied their business, because it's a perfect integration one day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think about that a bit as well. You learn as you go down an entrepreneurial journey, you learn little gold nuggets from people. And one of the types of people I've tried to focus on meeting and learning from is venture capitalists or fund managers, because they do business completely different to an entrepreneur, because they've got a whole different risk profile, because it's always someone else's money.
Mm-hmm.
They're never taking a calculated risk off their own money. Well, usually anyway. Sometimes they invest in their own fund or whatever, but most of the time it's someone else's money. So there's a whole different way they do that. And one of the things I learned recently, it's kind of like a lean startup strategy, but one of the things that this guy said to me was, we've got this product, we've built like enough to know we can do it. We're down that road, but now we need our first customer. And my mindset was, what do you mean first customer? We don't have a website. We don't have a logo. We don't have like an ABN. Like I've got businesses and you've got businesses, but where does that fit in? And he's just like, cool, mate. Don't worry about any of that. Let's just get the first customer. And I'm like, but how can you get a customer without any of that stuff? And he said, well,
yeah, what was he think? What was his idea?
They put together kind of like an expression of interest, but basically they put together an offer of what it will be, and they just get a company to commit to it. And that commitment then goes back to the investors to say, we've got a customer of this size ready to commit. It'll protect the initial investment. And from that, we build an MVP, which I didn't know of either, minimum viable product. Yeah. I thought it was most valuable player. I thought he was talking about me. And that's what we've done, and we've done it with a product now, and we've got a first customer who's really excited about it, and it's not even real yet, but we've convinced them we're capable. They've committed to us that they're willing to pay for it if we deliver exactly what we've said. So now these guys are willing to put their money in. Whereas as entrepreneurs, what do? Get the website, get everything ready, print a t-shirt. It's like, how about you get a customer first?
Yeah.
But we're scared. I think we're scared to go ask a customer, hey, you willing to buy this idea that I've never done before, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out if you give me the okay.
But if you make the entry, a lot of people talk about free to fee. So like if you can offer out free to start with, so they see the value first, then switch it to fee, like you can pick up customers very quickly.
Yeah.
Makes me think of a dumpling place that's near the office in the city. And this guy he's just started selling dumplings, and he's printed out on a A4 piece of paper, like dumplings $5. And he just stuck them all over the front of the window. And he's clearly just got the space plus these stickers, and he's got people going through that over and over again. There is no big, nice sign, anything like, and it makes me think like, putting up the logo and spending all that money is like putting up a massive, amazing shop front before you even know if you've got any customers to come through.
Yeah, it's proof of concept.
Yeah.
But I think people are scared to put themselves out there to say, I've got this idea, what do you think? And look, if it's your first business, you probably shouldn't do that, because you most likely won't be able to deliver on whatever the hell you've just told them you can.
Yeah.
Because you don't know about the back end yet.
Which you've got to work out. Like, I think they say, get the MVP. There's something along the lines of product market fit. So like, getting something in, product market fit, MVP, and then that's when it starts to like almost like direct where the need is that you're solving. Like, which I mean, that's actually how the property stuff that I've also been doing as well. That kind of evolved from solving an initial problem for myself and then realizing it's a much bigger problem to solve.
So what was your last job?
As a recruiter. Seemingly no one from the UK can escape the grips of, doing recruitment for a few years. I don't know if you know, it's kind of a bit of a...
Yeah, it is.
It's certainly a few years ago anyway. It's like you can turn up, get sponsorship for basically jumping on a phone and annoying people. Like,
and that led you into your business now?
Yeah. So came to Australia, bought and sold some of these random goods, worked on the light railway as a labourer.
Which light rail?
The Sydney Light Railway. Yeah, so back in whenever that was, 2016.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I was literally just the person who, someone would point and be like, take those bricks and put them over there, or change that sign. And we'd do like night shifts, like whatever it was. I was with this company. There was like a recruitment company, and they would just post you out to different.
Like labour hire. Yeah.
It was labour hire. Yeah. And so I got my white card and all that kind of stuff, and I slowly kind of got given more and more responsibility of drive the van between here and here, and
don't crash.
Don't crash. Yeah. And it was good. It was good fun. But then it was hot and didn't want to be doing labouring for too long.
So did you have a hybrid approach where you went from employee entrepreneur for a while before you fully hit the job and went all in?
So if I fast forward from the labouring, I then did recruitment for 6-7 years, and then during that period of time is when I started to get a few commission checks, which I managed to avoid not spending on nice things, and kind of held back and started investing in property, and then started investing in education, and then juggled the day job. I kind of joke about it as riding two horses at the same time, and as long as they're going at the same kind of pace and you can kind of keep them both happy, you're good. But when one starts to kind of go a bit faster, you're like, I'm gonna have to like jump off.
Yeah, you're gonna have to pick one.
Yeah. So, but I reckon for like maybe like 3 years of like juggling both. And so, if I can say this humbly, like I was a high performer in the sales job, and so I wanted to make sure I was still delivering there, because that was my commitment to that business. And my theory was, if I was 9 to 5 with them, I could then be the whole 5 to 9 on everything else. And so kind of wanted to keep that going. And then over time, I went from kind of being, in the top list, and again, like if I could say it humbly, I was kind of like their number one for a while, and then eventually went to number 2 and number 3, and I'm like, okay, this is
time to go.
Yeah, like I'm getting to the. And my goal was that if I dropped out of their top 10, I was like, I think like 70 people in the business. Then I was like, that was the indicator that I was really now starting to drop a ball over there. And so, I think I got to like number 6, and I was like, okay, cool. Need to like, unfortunately,
before my reputation goes.
Yeah. Well, you've only got one name in the market, and it was important that I did the right thing by, those guys. Because, really, the commission checks that I'd earned through them had given me this platform to go and make more choices and do other stuff. And the long story short is I got to invest in property, and then I spent I didn't go to university. I didn't take that path. And so my education was then paying for all these different property courses, and some are great, some are not so great, but
focused on what property development or management or
property development. Yeah, specifically property development. There's quite a lot of courses in Australia where you can go to the free 1 day, and then that inevitably comes back to the 2 day, and it'll cost you a couple of $1,000s, and then eventually there's this big grand package which always sounds like it's the one you just need and it's going to solve everything. And
got a good funnel.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like a get rich quick scheme necessarily, but it certainly sounds like one of the biggest things in property is getting funding. And so soon as now, in hindsight, looking back, as soon as someone's dangling that carrot of if you take this big course, that funding is also available as well, because you've got the skills plus the funding, and start finding good sites. And then it kind of one of the courses anyway that I spent a lot of money on, turned out that the funding was almost impossible to get. When I now look back at the quality of deals that I had to find, it was like saying,
that's because the only funding was probably the course fees they were piling up.
Exactly.
So
yeah. I mean, I learned a lot. The best thing about those courses, though, was meeting the people that are also so committed to the tune of that number that you were spending money to do something different. There's people. Yesterday, I went to a business networking event at the Roosters, and was invited by a guy who was the guy who I messaged very early on after doing one of these courses to basically check out, is this real? Who's this guy? Because this guy, his name had flashed up somewhere on one of the tiles, and I'm always very wanted to just check out is this really real before I start paying? So I found him on Facebook, and his profile picture was just a shirt, like a football shirt. I remember messaging him. I could still go back to the messages, and it's hey, I was wondering if I could grab a coffee with you because I'm looking at doing this course, and sounds like you've been successful in it so far. And now we kind of hang out and go to. He's got a box at one of the Roosters, and kind of go and hang out with him there. And
it's easy to find friends when you got a box at the footy.
That's true. That is very true. And he managed to bring lots of good people in as well to the box, but. He wasn't on the specific courses, but it was those kind of people that, you meet a lot of great people.
Yeah.
And you're
it's the power of networking, isn't it?
Especially when there's a price tag to it. That when you've gone all in with let's call it $50,000, and you're sat in a room of people.
You're
that also
I need to get something out of this.
Yeah, he puts a bit.
What it is? If you go to networking events that are free, people are there to get free knowledge. If you go to an event that's heavily paid for or paid for at all, there's a different intent. Because the intent is I need to make my money back. Yeah. And so you meet people with the same intent of we need to find a deal. And is there something amongst us or is there not? Whereas I think a free course, the problem is with who you meet there is it's a free course. So they're not really committed other than their time. If they don't meet anyone and they just listen to some guy talk for an hour, then they're satisfied with that. But when someone's paid a lot of money, the course isn't enough. They're still looking for that networking heavily to meet people that are in the right place at the right time. And so, I think paid networking is a whole different game to just a free networking event.
I agree. I do think, though, however, that opens up the channel of kind of slightly sharky type courses where it's if you're going to pay the premium, you'll get a premium, and then you get the other end of that, and you're I wasn't quite as good as I expected. But it's hard to differentiate which ones are. There's a guy who I was introduced to through a mutual connection, and he wants to basically get into property kind of a few years. I don't think I'd say behind me, but as in he's newer to that space. And the best thing I could do for him was to be this networking event and this one are the best ones that I've been to so far, to just kind of help disqualify out the ones that I personally didn't think were as good. And so when he texts me maybe a few months later to be hey, I've done that course, I've signed up to this thing now, I was oh, cool. The guy's actually really wants to do something. So I haven't actually met up with him yet, but definitely on the cards, because the commitment to do something different, it's there. So I think you just got to be careful which courses you sign up to, because education.
There's so many of them now,
especially when you go and pick up a book for $10 and sometimes get 25% of that education. A lot of these, I shouldn't say a lot of these guys. I think there's some content where you're that's clearly just been ripped out of that book, put their name on it, and then delivered in a different way. And it's almost just my personal opinion is it's almost a lazy way of learning, and sitting there and listening to someone is quite entertaining versus educational.
Yeah.
And it's that balance.
And it's almost like, so people just feel like they've done something.
Yeah. They come out of there like all hyped up, motivated, all that kind of stuff. But in reality, the pure education is just in the content, like in a book. Like if you get I'm sure if someone came to you now and said, I want to get into business, what's the top 3 books that you recommend? You'd be like, here's the ones that were best for me.
Yeah. There's no one solution though.
Nah.
So how did you meet your business partner?
In the day job. Oh,
interesting. So you were both at the same workplace?
Yeah.
And it was like this, at the water cooler type thing, like, hey, we're going to escape this place? Or?
Yeah. Actually, a little bit like
that.
Are
you not?
Yeah. Well, I could tell that he wasn't meant to be there. And like, I also felt like I wasn't meant to be there from I wasn't from a recruitment background. And so, the business that I worked for was the recruitment company. Then there was a consulting side as well. And, I think it was fairly early on, understood that he had invested in property, was a few steps ahead of me, and was that he was able to pass kind of back down like the education that he'd learned. And one of those big things was serviceability. Like, you can get to a point where you've spent, like, as in the banks won't lend you any more money. And so we did a quick project together where he had some land and hadn't built on.
So you were already investing in property at this stage?
I wasn't. By the time I'd met him, I actually didn't have a visa to be able to get any kind of mortgage. So I worked at one recruitment company, went to a second recruitment company, met the business partner or now business partner, and I got my visa. But before that, he had some land and I had some cash from some commission checks. So I invested in the project, came home one day and said to my wife, like, I've just put $50,000 into, this project. She's like, who's this guy? I'm like, oh, he seems to check out. Like he's
I hope so anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And then only like a few.
Was he sending you selfies like the chicken China?
Yeah. I should have done actually. I fortunately got to see him every day, make sure he was actually for real. Like kind of, I think it was like maybe 12 months later, we built this duplex and there was a return and kind of went home and I was like, it's like a 40% return.
So is that your first build?
That was the first build. Yeah.
And you did it together, duplex.
Yeah. When I came home with the return, the wife was like, "That's good. Like maybe you could do that again." I was like, "Oh, you like the guy now?" Like,
yeah. All of a sudden he checks out.
He's fine now, isn't he? But
actually,
we actually had like met in like dinners, that kind of stuff as well. Then kind of fast forward, bought a first property in a West. Then bought a first property, commercial property. And I just tried to steer away from buying the flashy stuff, which I would still like to buy one day.
Was this all with your now business partner or you started doing some things on your own? Or
No, I was doing stuff on my own in terms of personal portfolio. And then I was doing stuff within the business as well, which then led us to building what we call micro apartments, which I kind of recognized pretty quickly that you can make a big impact on a huge problem in Australia, which is affordable housing. And so we just build these things to like a high standard that I would want to live in, you would want to live in. And it's a pure convenience play. It's like an Airbnb / serviced apartment in terms of all bills included. And, someone can just rock. Unfortunately, the demographic is quite often like divorcees or people that are, widowed, whatever. But it's had a great uptake where it's great for the investor, it's great for the tenant. So we've just done that over and over again, really niche down.
That became the business model.
Yeah. And we did like one.
Did you learn that from someone or you came up with it?
I did learn that from, there was one guy who I would consider a mentor. And I pretty much reached out. Yeah, I did actually. I could go back to the messages on Facebook where he presented at one of those networking events. I don't know if you get this, but you kind of just tell when you will kind of gel with someone a little bit more. I heard this recently that authenticity gives off a whole different frequency, and if that slightly woo-woo, but if I believe that, then this guy was giving off authenticity. So I just messaged him and was just like, "So how does this work from A, B, and C?" And he called me and just gave an absolute download of everything. Like,
wow.
I then learned that he's done that for a while and had been in that space and really kind of that similar to your guy who was 55 ish and was just like, here's everything you need.
Seed.
When I went and caught up with him for lunch, he was like, "Mate, I've handed out like information and business models and stuff to people before and they just don't do anything with it." And so I like to think that he's sort of...
Did he get up for commission or?
No, I don't,
he's like, if I need a room.
I cover coffee and lunch as often as I can. But yeah, he's a really good guy. And so he kind of shared like what he'd done and then basically like taking that model and then basically bringing other people into that. He didn't want to deal with other people like investors and whatever. He fortunately was able to kind of fund most of the stuff himself. But yeah, we eventually obviously run out of our own cash, and then we started bringing in investors.
When you were using your own cash, were you building and selling, or you
Building and
maintaining
holding.
the asset?
Yeah,
Okay,
we were building and holding. Like we're just holding on for dear life, leveraging as much as we could. So
Because commercially, that's tough for serviceability, right?
100%. Yeah, that's
And there's ways around it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, even if people say, "Oh, just put it in a company or a trust," and it's like, yeah, but they follow the road. Where does the money lead to? Who's it going to come from if it runs out of money? And if you can't service that,
totally.
it's going to get tough.
And policies keep always changing, different lenders. So that's been like a big juggle over the years. Is like, how do we still get to that end goal? Like, but it leads you down different paths because you meet different people that are more niche, and you kind of go, how would you solve this problem? And they share with you what they've tried, and you're like, oh, okay, I haven't actually tried that yet. So whether that's like private funding, development finance, like whatever, like I kind of just had it in my head, these big four banks, and that's kind of all you go to. Then you realize there's tier 2, tier 3, and all the way down to high net worths who have basically just sat on cash and are looking for those kind of developers to invest
Your
in.
cash sitting in a bank account's losing value, right?
100%.
And there is more than enough people who are so time poor, have a risk appetite, have the capital, and just need someone to just take it and give it back with a reasonable return. And they're normally the best people to work with, because it's the people who are giving you every dollar they've got are the ones that are micro every crumb they're watching, every cent, every dollar.
It's not fun.
And they're calling you every day because they're panicking, because their wife's panicking. They're really hard to work with. And everyone started out that way. But as a business model, you can't always work with those people. You have to find people that just go, if you can prove you've done this 50 times before and it worked, then just take my money and call me when it's back.
Yeah. And we realized that although we had like a minimum buy-in for most people, we started to drop that down if we thought that the person investing would be able to do more in the future, and they just needed to check us out. So we do a small number. They would kind of get their interest, but I don't think anything builds more trust than when you get that interest back that you agree that was part of the deal. The time poor. There's actually a group of guys who have got a syndicate together. They're like lawyers, plastic surgeons, and they all like. Well, I think I can speak from what they share that they enjoy what they do, and like, but it's very much time. Like they have to, but they've got the cash, and so they were able to just park cash into this, trust. They lend it out to us, and that's just slowly scaled over time. Like I don't think that they plan to, and some of them actually bought property before, but they've done the negative gearing.
Does it freak people out? Explain the micro home. So it's
micro homes, so micro apartments. It's what's the best way of describing it? So from the outside looking in, it's a normal house. It looks like a normal house. The classification of building is a 1B building. So 1A is what you and I would live in with one family. 1B is when it becomes a house of multiple occupancies. That's the name in the UK that they use. But it basically means like a house of unrelated parties. And so you can't own each of the apartments separately. You own the whole building. So it becomes like a built to rent.
So you
type
can't
product.
sell them as individual assets.
No.
Okay. So someone's got to own the whole thing.
Someone's got to own the whole thing.
Is that because it's one land title or?
Yes. Yeah. It's one title or one dwelling.
Yeah.
And so, basically, someone can come in, rent one of those rooms or apartments. It's about 30 square meters. And in it is pretty much everything like they would like need, bedroom, bathroom. There's a main kitchen that they can use.
Like a frat house.
Yeah, well, I think, but that's actually what we found is that people said, oh, is it a boarding house? And we're like, well, no. Like
we don't want to call it that, but it could be.
It could be depending on how the characteristics of it. But I think that it tends to be that if you imagine the classifications in 1B normally attracted kind of not great tenants, but if you wanted to try and attract great tenants, what would you do? You'd enhance the quality of the experience regardless of what the classification of building is. So we just, fully furnished, make it super easy, all bills included. And so, basically at the moment, Queensland's our main focus, and we just started opening up Melbourne. And they can basically...
No New South Wales.
New South Wales is just hard work. Like there's DAs take too long. We can get a DA through in like 20 days. The personal best is 6 days. So
I love that you're measuring that. Yeah.
Oh, of course, because it's like planning risk. Like for an investor, they're kind of worried about only certain gates of risk, and so planning risk is a big one. But the fact that we get it through in 6 days means that pretty much before they put their cash in, and we've got a delayed settlement, we've already got the DA done. Before that. So it's the demographic of people that live in in the accommodation is individuals, and so young professionals, not those that are students, guys that want to get out of living at home with mum and dad.
Mm.
They've gone to uni, they've got this skill set, they haven't yet got a partner. It's hard enough to buy a house, two people, hard enough to rent two people. And so young guys who are just kind of getting on their feet, guys and girls, and then 55 plus, so like people that are also by themselves for whatever life reason, divorced, widowed, whatever. It's a niche in the market that we found. We're not the first to find it, but I think it's fair to say that to do it at some kind of scale to try and get
anyone can do it once or twice, but to have a commercial method towards it,
100%, and stacking it. What we also found as well, that people will sell these like house and land packages, but we wanted to do what we'd done. What had worked for us was doing subdivision and construction all the way through to handing over. So it actually really boils down to, why would you buy a commercial property and hold it long term if you can build a commercial property and hold it long term?
Mm.
As in with the with a subdivision as well, because then you get the equity uplift, and then you build. So for savvy investors that have been in property for a while, normally they've bought residential, they've bought commercial, they're kind of a little bit afraid of development because they're too busy doing their day job or whatever. And so that bridge, we literally kind of bridge that gap between those that want to get into development. I'm pretty sure that there's some investors that we work with who don't necessarily talk about us too much around the dinner table, as in with friends, because they're essentially developing the property. We're just kind of like leading that, if you know what I mean.
Like a project manager type.
Yeah, pretty much. That's just kind of one of the ways that we've been doing it. But our big goal, like simply put, is 1,000 homes by 2030. And so we're 250 plus on the way there now.
With the sole purpose of the housing crisis, right? Something that.
Yeah.
Well, you can't solve it, but you can.
No, we can
make
a
an
small
impact.
dent in it. I think I'd like to get to 2030 and look back and go, yeah, okay, we did something good there. Not only did we solve our own problem of kind of like trying to get our equity to work harder for itself, but we also then brought other people, bridge that gap, because there's so many guys as well. Like I go to these networking events and they teach you all the theory of being a developer, but then like very little practical. And so I think there's lots of people that have done the theory, just not ready to kind of jump into the practical, but they can literally partner with us. And we've had people before say, "Oh, just so you know, once I've done one of these with you, I'm probably going to go and do it by myself." I'm like, "That's fine. Like as long as you're also wanting to just create more homes as we are."
People
like,
try and do it themselves and go, "This is too hard."
Yeah. One guy said that he was going to do that in the early days, and I think he's on his 5th project now. Like he's just like, for the relatively small fee that we charge compared to the whole project and the risk involved. Like, why would I not just inject my cash into this machine, pay the fee, and just kind of get a commercial property created that they get to hold? So
do you hear much pushback around fees of the asset type? The fact that if you wanted to sell it, you've got to find another buyer who's, that it's only going to be an investment. You can't move your family in there. So I think you've mentioned once before, you do build them in a way you can basically pull the walls down and turn it into a family home. Is that part of the future proofing to lower that risk of being stuck with an asset that's harder to sell than just a traditional home?
Yeah, we get the question every now and then. It's very defensible as an asset. I mean, it's a building in a residential area. And yes, you could absolutely convert it back from the 1B to a 1A. We've never done that. But based on the
Have you sold many? I know you models to hold, but have you sold many and seen any problems with that?
No, as in we haven't sold. We follow the sales because obviously it's good to keep a track on the asset type, so we know what they would sell for. As in, it's not like we would put them up for sale and be like, "Oh, where's the buyers we expected?" We know that there is demand. Why wouldn't there be if you're buying commercial property? It sometimes stacks even better than.
You hear a lot about housing crisis, and I was thinking about it the other day. And do we have a housing crisis, or do we just have really high expectations of how we want to live? Because if you look at other major cities in the world, right, Japan's a great example. They've got people in shoeboxes, they've got people in apartments, they've got people in houses. But if you want to be anywhere near the city, you're in a shoebox or an apartment. Like, it would be ridiculous to think you can have a 5-bedroom home within 20 minutes of the CBD. But we still have that. And I think it's because of the Australian dream, right? You want to have the backyard and your kids playing in it, but we want to have our cake and eat it too, because we also love being near the city or near the beach. And the reality is there is no housing crisis in Australia. There's a housing crisis in major cities because that's where everyone wants to live. But I mean, there's more than enough land, and it can be cheaper to live in other areas. We see it with the mining booms, people moving to Western Australia. Is there really a housing crisis in Sydney, or do you think people just have a high expectation of what their living standard should be and what it should cost them?
I think there's a couple of things there. In terms of like land, not necessarily builds, I think that comes down to planning. So governments could do more, councils could do more to release more land. I think another argument that I hear is it a housing crisis or a migration problem? As in, are we bringing too many people in to a country that doesn't actually have the homes for it? I think that's a pretty fair argument to have.
You know what's another problem? So obviously immigration in Australia is massively Indians, right? And the type of work they do, as in it's usually office work, that they're coming in for, not trades. For office work, especially in Sydney, where do you have to work? In the city, which means you have to live relatively close to the city because our transport infrastructure is not there. We don't have bullet trains, for example, where you could live in, Bathurst and get to the city in an hour. So I think the problem with our immigration is we're importing skill sets that actually just make it even harder for the economy to survive because they then have no choice but to live where the work is. The work's in the city, and that's where the hardest real estate is to get into. So maybe, there's an argument of immigration that can go a million different ways, but looking at who's coming in based on their skill sets, well, we need builders in Australia. We need trades. We need plumbers, right?
Especially with what's happening in Queensland.
Yeah, I was an apprentice sparky back in the day, right? And everyone we worked with was Irish.
Right, yeah.
And that's it's still like that now.
Could you?
Yeah, every sparky's Irish, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we need to look at as immigration is, well, Sparkies will work anywhere and live anywhere. They can work anywhere up and down the coast because every country town's got a need for a Sparky. But if you're bringing in people that are their skill sets IT or AI or whatever, that's going to be in the city. They're not going to, remote working's promoting this in a different way now. Maybe that's going to help, but we still have a work culture of coming into the office. So I feel like we're just putting everything in a melting pot. And that's why it's bubbling over because we're giving ourselves worst case scenario. We're bringing in, we need immigration. That's guaranteed. We don't have enough people in this country, but we're bringing in people that are adding to the problem, not helping us create cities outside of our major cities.
Yeah. So as in you would, if you were in a role of
when I'm Prime Minister,
Prime Minister, as in you would filter a kind of who's coming in based on skill set and then align that.
Do you do much time in the country?
A little bit, like I think down to Orange and Mudgee.
If you go to any country town in Australia, right, there's going to be some kind of small war memorial. And that's because when people came back from the war, the government said, let's give you some land out in the country because we need you to be out there. There's not enough land here, so we're going to give you some land out there. And that's where most country towns came from is people were given land coming back from the war. They made settlements, which created a small community. And that's where most of our farming comes from now.
Right.
But they didn't just take them all in and put them in Sydney CBD and say, better get a job.
Yeah, good luck. You're in IT
better find
now.
somewhere to live. They were forward thinking enough to go, well, we better not shove them all in Sydney CBD or Melbourne. We better find a reason for them to want to go out to those areas. We needed farming, so we had a solution for that. But I don't think we're thinking that far ahead right now.
No, I also think that affordability needs to be the cost of the accommodation plus the travel time, plus the travel cost of getting to wherever your place of work is.
Yeah.
You see people that do move quite far outside the CBD. When you look at the cost of transport plus their accommodation, they might as well either be closer or it's actually not even affordable still.
Yeah. Where we moved closer to, so I was further out. I was Schofields, the Ponds, that area.
Right.
And we moved into Oatlands because I was like, I'm sitting in traffic for an hour every day or I take tolls. And by the time I pay an arm and a leg to live closer, I'm going to make up for most of it in those travel costs anyway.
Yeah.
But look at Parramatta now. Parramatta's exploding. There's no way my house is 4 kilometres from Parramatta CBD in Oatlands, right? That's all going to be gone because there's no way you'll be able to live that close to Parramatta CBD soon. Kind of like in the city where they've got those vertical little houses, that are like, I don't know, 50 square meters. They're tiny, right? But you're paying $4 million for them. Their heritage listed most of them. That's the only reason they're still there, or they'd be long gone.
Right.
And that's probably going to happen to Parramatta surrounding now, and those boundaries will get pushed out. Penrith was like the country 20 years ago. If you lived in Penrith, everyone was like, "You what?"
Yeah. Where's
Whereas
that?
now it's just
is that safe?
The most affordable suburb that's outside of all the unaffordable stuff.
I go out there sometimes to do the indoor skydiving over there.
Have you seen the ski resort that's being built out there?
No.
It's called Winter Sports World.
Okay.
There's this dude who's a real visionary. I met him a few weeks ago, and he had this idea of why can't we ski in Penrith? And I don't think many people
you can ski in Dubai, just to bring it back to Dubai.
That might be what put him along this way. He did reference it at this talk he was at. And basically, he's like, well, let's just build an indoor ski resort. It'd be a massive tourist attraction. But to make it happen, he's had to sell 1,000 people on the idea. He's got to get investors. He's got to get the government on board, local council. Right? It's taken a long time, but it's starting construction this year.
Yeah, right.
And it's got a 100+ meter ski slope, a full indoor kids play area, and accommodation that overlooks the snow.
Okay.
Pretty wild.
That is wild.
I think $700 million project is what he was saying. Delivered in, I think, 2 years.
He must have crunched the numbers on the demand, hence the investors jumping in.
Well, there's a million ways to make money out of it. Part of it's the fact that it's 24/7 snow, so it could be serviced all year round. But then, sports training, Olympics, things like that, it gives them a way of training more. But it's just a big attraction, and it's in Penrith. Like it makes no sense, right? But it's about bringing the economy further out.
Yeah.
That's what they've done with Parramatta, because 20 years, 30 years ago, no one had been in Parramatta doing business either, like no one in Penrith is right now. And they're just moving that out. And I think that's probably where this housing crisis is going to get solved, because if you work in Penrith, you can live further up the mountains, and it's much more affordable.
Don't they say that Penrith will be the West CBD?
Yeah.
And Parramatta will be the CBD, and then you've got the East CBD?
Yeah. Who's going to go in the city in 20, 30 years? You'll live in an apartment and work down the road, or you just won't go there. It's too hard.
Yeah, that's true.
Parking's $100.
They're even building buildings now that have, residential upstairs and then kind of co-living, co-space downstairs, like shared office space. Like that's actually, not to bang on about Dubai, but that's also something they're doing quite frequently over there as well. Because people they don't need to be traveling.
Why travel? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sydney traffic, everyone knows it. It's an absolute nightmare. Probably the quickest way to solve it is that people don't need to drive very far to go to work.
Yeah, or jump on electric.
What do you think of the 4-day working week?
Oh, nah. Like, as in, it's a good question. I think everything should be tried. As in, if there's some data to prove in other countries that it is something that's worthwhile.
But where does the data come from?
Yeah,
I see it like working from home. If people were all honest, no one would say, I work better at home. They might say, I work better without distractions, and maybe there's someone in the office that distracts them, but no one works better from home.
No, well, they say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I think it's really important to have everyone in the same space, not to drag them in through traffic, but to have that whole kind of crossing idea. I mean, yesterday, the Roosters, they were talking about, the Sydney Swans HQ, that they purposefully designed it. Steve Jobs talked about it, about Apple and lots of different businesses, but they want people to collide with each other, like, around the coffee machine, around the water cooler, that kind of stuff.
That is where the ideas get floated.
Yeah. So,
and because if you go back to text and email, we're a Microsoft business, right? So everyone's on Teams or whatever, but you're just stating the facts, dot points onto the next one, and you pick up the phone a couple of times a day. But there's no camaraderie. There's no, let's grab lunch quickly and we'll talk about ourselves personally. What'd you get up to on the weekend? It's just after a meeting, quick catch up and see you later. And that's gonna change. The workplace satisfaction, I think, comes from those friendships. And they say people will be happier at their workplace if they work, 1 day less a week or whatever. But I think the opposite, because anyone who's worked in a really good team, it doesn't matter how many hours you work, you're having fun. Like I'm in the security world, right? So we've done stupid shifts where you're living on a site, doing a bodyguard job, whatever, or you're living at the property, or you're stuck in the city for a 2-week event and you're just going nowhere from the hotel room but to the event. But they're the best memories we have as a team going through that together. That just doesn't happen when you work from home. There's no problem that brings you together over a Microsoft Teams.
Well, we're social creatures. Like, we should definitely be hanging out, in an office space together. Like, so yeah, I don't think. I also think that if people feel like it's like work, then they're probably not in the right job. As in, if something really feels. I think I was listening to this thing yesterday, which was about the work ethic of Tesla. As in, people are there because they want to be there. SpaceX. They really want to be there. Like, they will work 7 days a week, and that, Elon Musk, regardless of what you think about him, he has an incredible work ethic, like off the chain. Like, not one I think that everyone wants to replicate, but it means that the people under him literally want to kind of,
they're all sold on a vision.
Yeah, like, imagine if you said to one of those guys, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go to a 4-day week." They'd be like, "F you!" Like, I want to be here. Like,
but why do you think they would not agree with it? I think they wouldn't agree with it because they see it as, well, that's going to take away from our goal. They're all sold on the vision, and by going down in work hours or work weeks, they don't care that people have extra time off, but they're so dedicated to the goal. But if you're in a business that doesn't have people dedicated to your greater good or greater goal, for example, with your business, right, you're building affordable housing for people who
100%.
really need it. If you're a single person trying to live anywhere in a major city, it's bloody expensive.
Yep.
And so along that journey, that's the goal. And working a day a week less or whatever, if you can make that tangible to, well, if we drop down to a 4-day work week, we're going to build 2 less houses a year, but everyone's driving towards that goal of affordable housing. Well, why would you take that option? You've got 2 less houses out in the world now that are doing good for people.
100%.
But I think people just aren't sold on that
I
job.
think it depends on whether people feel like their job is an anchor or a balloon. Like it's an analogy of like, does it feel like you want to be there, the balloon, or does it feel like it's just?
There's probably a lot of crappy jobs as well.
Yeah, but I think there's a right job for everyone. Like I think, but most often people have been pigeonholed into something because they've never actually been courageous enough to make that change. And sometimes it's obviously a lot harder, mortgage, kids, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think you either get pigeonholed based on all these responsibilities that weigh you down, or like some kind of transition into something that you really love. I think there's like a saying around, you find something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
I really believe in that because I mean, I would guess that you enjoy what you do within business, like as in coming through those different levels from grassroots. Like, so I actually think it's more of an issue that you haven't got the right people in the right roles. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, if you look at job roles who have the flexibility, like shift workers, I don't see them saying, "Oh, I'm just going to work a day a week less," because it means they make less money. This is only happening in roles that are on a salary that they're going to maintain that salary for 1 day less work. It's kind of like the the travel argument. Well, I'll be less angry about my job because I'm not sitting in traffic annoyed for an hour a day. Maybe, but you might be less enjoying the entire day by trying to save that 1 hour drive. The 1 hour drive might suck, but the next 8 hours might be awesome if you're in a great team. And that's going to way outbalance the annoying drive on the way home.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's also an argument for the whole work-life balance as well, because some people.
I'm not a believer in work-life balance, mate. Yeah, I think
you don't think that, as in you have to have the right amount of time dedicated. As if you carve up your week into time, no doubt there's time for family, there's time for work.
Well, okay, let me take that back. I think you have to have milestone family times. Family's a bit different, but I think you need to find a way to make your work your passion, whether it's as a employee, an entrepreneur. I'm a big fan of entrepreneurs. I think everybody can find satisfaction driving a business from the inside. You don't have to be the founder, you don't have to be the owner, but there's always a position for more innovation and entrepreneurship. And then as an entrepreneur, you probably shouldn't be one if you don't enjoy every single part of your job. Yeah.
If you don't enjoy just the constant pain of solving stuff.
Yeah, a friend of mine asked me the other day, he's a business partner actually, he was getting pretty fed up with just the constant problems we have in that business at the moment. And he goes, "I don't know how you do it, it's just driving me nuts." And I said, "I would rather eat glass every day for the next 10 years. But if at the 10-year mark I get everything I've ever dreamed of, I'll take that over 30 years of that chip on the shoulder. I could have done more." I think that's the sacrifice is worth it, but I think you can't see that unless you've already had a taste of it.
Yeah. There's a guy that I went to see, and at the end of his podcast, at the end of his seminar, he said this is quite a bit controversial, like in terms of, it depends on how you look at it, but he says there's no greater pain than meeting the man at the end of your life that you could have been. Yeah, that can obviously cause the workaholic, but that can also cause just that right amount of like, okay, well, maybe I am really playing pretty small, and what would it feel like to get to the end when you don't have that time to go, I could have gone much harder.
Yeah.
Like,
I've always said I'm the last person who's ever going to have a midlife crisis because, as you know, I just do what I want to do. Whether it's buying that car or going on that holiday or going to that dinner with my wife. I don't care how much the restaurant costs. And that's not because I've got money to throw around, but if you spend your whole life stripping those things back, telling yourself it's going to happen later, then it might not. And I think that's what creates a friction. If you're grinding away hard, you've got to do those little things along the way. You can't just, like Elon Musk lives on the factory floor or whatever, right? He's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
But if you do that and then there's no fun along the way, I think that's where you lose motivation. Maybe that's the work-life balance I look at. Like for me, Monday to Friday is just whatever happens, it happens. I don't care if I've got to pull a 24-hour day or I get to work a 4-hour day. It's kind of like I've got my milestone schedule things and I hope that they go in that order. But if they don't, I don't sit around angry about it because I understand it's part of the process.
Yeah, but especially for what you do, as in, you kind of got to take that uncertainty, unpredictability, and just like see what works. And
well, so do you.
Yeah, no, totally. And my wife, I think she actually likes it more than she doesn't. But like the amount of ideas I'll come home with, which are already implemented, I got this beehive in the garden. Like
I've heard of this. I've been promised some honey quite a while ago, my friend.
there is still some in the cupboard, but
Yeah.
it's becoming like vintage now. It's like there's no more. The hive is actually unfortunately gone.
I saw a video of a guy who 3D printed a hive on the wall in his house. Have you seen this reel?
Where it's inside the house.
Yeah. And they come in a tunnel thing, and
that's the future. That's the future for the one day kind of house farm that we'll get into. I came home and I know what it was. I was in the city and they were putting beehives on the roofs from a sustainability perspective. It was awesome to see. And I just came home and said to my wife, I was like, I want to get into beekeeping. She's like, here we go. Like,
another one.
Yeah,
Another hobby.
Yeah. Because you don't have time for everything.
And part of her hoped you'd do it for 5 minutes and stop.
Yeah. I went and did this course, came home, and the bit that I didn't share with her straight away was that the guy offered to sell me a hive after learning how to be a beekeeper. And then 5 days before we were going to be flying back to get married in Europe, I was leaving 5 days before her, and I got a call from the guy. He said, "Oh, that beehive's ready for you now," and it got delivered. And she came home from work, and I was like, "How am I going to break this to her?" Like, there's literally a full swarm of bees in the garden going around this hive because they're fuming. They've obviously just got there, and I was hysterical. I said to her, like, those crazy ideas, like I've done one and I'm really not sure like how this is gonna go down. And she's like, looks at me, she's like, what have you done? And I'm like, there's a beehive in the garden. She's like, I was like, about 30,000 bees. Like, I'd done the calculation roughly on what a normal hive.
Count there, one.
Yeah, one. Steve, Dave, and she's like, well, 5 days. Like, what am I going to do when you're not here? Anyway, I cornered off the garden, and it worked out well. But what I worked out is more by luck than coincidence. Whatever the saying is. What's the saying? More by luck than judgment.
Yeah.
I called it G's Bees Bondi Honey. So I was tapping off all this honey and giving it away to friends. I wasn't selling it.
I'm not one of them, but yeah, keep going.
No, there's one in the post.
Yeah.
But everyone then started asking her, like, how's the bees? And it only took a number of conversations before she, started to come around to the idea. She's like,
Steve and Bob aren't so bad.
Pretty good. Like, but to start with, it's a bit like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, they're fine. Yeah. And by the time everyone's like, oh, how's the bees? She's like, oh yeah, no, they're pretty good. Like, so yeah, I think that the secret there is any mad idea that I want her to come on board with, I'll just kind of name it after her. Like,
that's the work-life balance I like, though. If you're gonna bust away, having little things like that is what
Yeah, and having fun with it. Like, it was a lot of fun, even if they did get a virus and eventually like we've kind of lost them all. Like, but
R.I.P.
Yeah, like kind of. Someone said, "Oh, you're gonna get another one." I was like, "Nah, too heartbroken." Like 30,000. They're all females as well. So I joked that 30,000 women leaving me all in one go was like a big hit.
It's a lot to recover from.
It was.
Oh, good stuff, mate. Thank you for coming in today. Good to have a chat.
Thanks.
And mate, Dominion, continue on the journey.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks.